All right, welcome to the Brand Sweat and Tears podcast. This is Dave Oldham, and today I'm excited to have my guests from SHYFT Global, Alex Burge and Levi Lindsay. And these guys, I've kind of been a fanboy of these guys. They don't know this. I'm a secret stalker, but what they've done, I think, is really cool. SHYFT itself is an agency, and I'll let them talk about that and the origin story of that. But they also have created their own brands, so several different brands, and I want them to tell some of the stories behind that. So they're this unique combination of providing services for other consumer brands at the same time, launching and scaling some of their own brands. So they eat their own dog food and they know what they're talking about because they've lived it. So it's pretty cool. With that, I'll let you guys kind of introduce yourselves, talk about the origin story of SHYFT, and tell us how you got here.
Sure. Thanks, Dave. I don't know. You want to start introductions, and I can talk about SHYFT a little bit.
Levi. I embarrass myself on the internet for a living.
He's very good at it too.
What you're about to see. I had a video production company for a while, and that all went to crap. And then what happened next? And I went to Kizik, which was amazing. I got a masterclass in marketing there, and then went to neighbor.com and did some really cool things with organic social and content there. And I got blackmailed into coming over to SHYFT.
Alex had some dirt on you, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to release this." And you were probably like, "I'm cool with that. There's way worse stuff out there that I'm, that I've leaned into." So
out of his product on.
Okay. Okay, the extended cut, the director's cut.
Yep. And I just, for my family's sake, I can't have those seen publicly.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, so I want to fill in some of the blanks there. That was like a super high level thing, and maybe it might be worth talking about like the video company and how it all went to crap, and maybe some lessons learned there. But Kizik is, I think a lot of people know Kizik nowadays, but Kizik is a shoe company that started here in Utah. That's this cool kind of slip-on technology. So it takes, sneakers and other shoes, and you don't have to, tie and untie laces. It's comfortable, slip on, but they still look really cool. Nike, I think, is a big investor. I'm fully anticipating Nike just buy them at some point and then, integrate all of that slip-on technology to other, Nike styles and stuff, which is, I think it's kind of happening right now, right? Yep. Super smart marketers over there. And then Neighbor is a cool kind of like Airbnb for your extra space, right? You got a corner of your garage that you want to lease out to somebody so they can stack some boxes there, or lease out your basement for something. So it's kind of like a storage. Is it mainly focused on storage, or are they actually for other purposes too?
No, just storage. Yeah. So it's like the Airbnb.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. So I've heard some interesting stories. Like I've got an RV on the side of my house, and you can rent it to like just store some crap in my RV because I actually never take it out. And, people are renting out shed space, corner of garage space, basement space, backyard space, whatever, right? Park your RV in my driveway and, I'll make some money from it, right? So it's kind of a cool thing. So you were there for a while, and then Alex convinced you with some of this, not rated, not safe for work material to blackmail you over to SHYFT Global, right?
Yep. Yeah, I actually met Alex because I was like, I really want to get back into product while I was at Neighbor, and software is fun, but I don't know. I missed product from my time at Kizik,
yeah.
And I really wanted to dive back into creating new brands, working with new brands, working with rocket ship brands. And there's a lot of diversity at SHYFT, and my ADHD brain loves that.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So I wanted to fill in the blanks. And I wanted to give Levi a shout out that 9 out of 10 people that I know that know Levi love Levi. And then there's that one jerk that just can't get over it. But, it's okay.
There is. And betrayal. Give me another chance. Please.
Here's an honest plea. Let's have him on and let's have this
My high
makeup.
school gym coach. Listen, please love me.
That's awesome. High school gym coach is the one person on the planet that doesn't love Levi. Okay, so
Anything.
it's probably good. It's probably good that your high school gym coach doesn't love you, because that would get really awkward. That would get really weird. Okay, Alex, tell me your.
Okay,
For those of you who are just listening to this, we just got a belly flash, which was awesome.
you
all
caught
right.
me in a goofy mood today, Dave.
Yeah, this is great. This will be great content. We're just gonna be laughing the whole time. We won't really even talk about anything serious. We'll just be laughing. So Alex, tell me your origin story.
Yeah. So I was about to go way back to the very beginning of my origin story, but
I was born on a cold, dark December morn in the ghetto.
yeah. So kind of my story starts. I got involved at a supply chain company, and I internshiped there, and that was my first exposure to supply chain, and I think COVID did a lot for the term supply chain, for just the common vernacular. But prior to COVID, the majority of people I talked to really just, it didn't mean anything. What does supply chain even mean, right?
Yeah.
And then we heard
I
all
mean,
about
now 9 out of 10 consumers probably just aren't aware exactly, like, how does a product end up on their doorstep eventually, right? They're not sure, like, all the thousands of little things that happen to get it there eventually, from getting it built to getting it shipped to all that.
Totally. Yeah. So, and that was me included. So, when I got to this internship, I went there because, anyway, I had a connection through my dad, and it was kind of a thing where I wanted to give it a try. And so I went and interned there, and quickly found that it was something that I always tell people, when we get caught up too much in, like, I want to do what I love, and I agree, but I think the thing we don't say a lot of is you love what you're good at. Most of the time, it's very rare that we're good at something and then we don't enjoy doing it, because there's a lot of fulfillment, and there's a feeling that you're adding some value to somebody. So for me, I don't know that I was good at it, but I was better at supply chain than anything else, because I hadn't really pursued professionally very many things. And so I enjoyed that, and had the opportunity to be exposed to kind of a rapid growing startup environment that really, it was a good refiner's fire. And I often tell people that it was no more difficult or less difficult than it has been to build SHYFT. It was just very Wild West, and just out of the reality of kind of how that company was growing. And that was a huge blessing to me, and kind of gave me contacts in the space and exposure. And long story short, that company ended up going out of business, and while I was still there. And luckily I didn't have a lot to lose, because it was just, I was recently married, but we didn't have any money.
Were you still
assets.
living in the mom's basement or something?
Yeah, it was pretty. I was pretty naive to reality, frankly. I remember we tried to get our first apartment. We're like, oh yeah, we can afford this. And had I not gotten like a significant raise the week before we moved in that I wasn't planning on, we would have for sure gone way in the hole. Like, I just didn't even know how to, think about married life. But anyway, so we did that. The company went out of business, and it was time to, like, either jump off and start a company or go get a job. And my wife and I and my dad, who is our chairman, and my partner, we started this, bootstrapped this together. So we all kind of felt convicted that there was something that we could do in this industry that we felt was underserved, and that was exciting.
What was your dad doing at the time?
So he did a couple of things. He's very entrepreneurial, and that's been awesome for me to have in my life. But he's at the time, he was the full-time CEO of a stone importing and building company. So they build hotels and large stone buildings. And so he was running that company, and it was kind of one of those things where he saw an opportunity, I saw an opportunity, and I was in a place where I could dedicate most of, I was still in school, but I could work a full-time amount of hours.
Mm-hmm.
And
So he didn't quit he kept doing that. It wasn't like he quit doing that. He just said, hey, I'll work on this with you, or contribute to this, help out with this. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And that was really good. Like it was important for me to kind of go do something, and it was something we wanted to build something meaningful together. So it lined up, and it was super organic. I mean, we started out just your classic, $200 for rent in a tiny little room without windows. And it was just kind of I remember we spent $2,000 furnishing our offices with all the necessities. And that was a pretty big, we felt it, that was a pretty big deal for us.
Yeah. 10 months worth of rent.
Yeah. And we were lucky to have also my brother had just moved back to Utah, and my younger brother, and he helped with some projects and was instrumental in those. And then my sister is a professional graphic designer, and she was instrumental as well. And so there was certainly some very critical part-time support as well early on from really just family. And then we hired our first intern a couple weeks in, and he's now our COO.
Nice. He's been with you the whole time.
Just incredible. Yeah. His name's Norm Skirkovich, and he's as tough as his name sounds. So we're super blessed to have that team. But that's the origin story. We bootstrapped it. We just used some of our own capital, and it was very much one of the things I like to share is early on we had imported a bunch of hoverboards. When hoverboards are like the thing, and then they started blowing up, not ours, but other people's. And Amazon just sent an email to everyone who was selling hoverboards. We were like the number one seller on Amazon. Amazon said free refunds, no questions asked. So it was like this high of like making money. And then every 3 or 4 minutes, my dad's phone would ping with a return all the way through Christmas. And it was like,
oh man,
we would get them back and they'd be stripped and they'd be just shells, but they'd get the $500 back.
What?
And so it was wild. But anyway, we spent the next several years rebuilding these hoverboards, and then we'd sell them like where the Girl Scouts sell their cookies by Costco. We like put up a folding table, and that like
you could get some Girl Scout cookies and grab a hoverboard.
Yeah.
Buy 10 boxes of Girl Scout cookies, get a hoverboard for free.
Yeah. I got down to the last hoverboard only like 2 years ago out of my garage. Like I was still making them.
No way.
So we used that to fund payroll, and then we just grew. We were blessed with some early customers that helped us, but it was very much like, hey, could we last 3 months? Is this an experiment? Like, could we pay the very little money we need to survive for 3 months? And then it just went from there. So anyway, that was long-winded, but that's kind of where we started.
No, that was cool. In fact, I have a couple of questions. So what I think was really interesting about your story is this idea of kind of forced entrepreneurship or encouraged entrepreneurship, where I've talked to a lot of founders over the years where they were in a job, they thought, hey, I like this job, this might be my career, this is where I'm heading, and then they get fired, or the company gets sold, or something happens that's totally unexpected and puts them in this position where they have to figure out, okay, what am I going to do now, right? And years later, with retrospect, they think that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my career, because it put me in this position where my back was against the wall. I had to figure something out. I had to get really creative. It maybe pushed me out of my comfort zone. And then I went and built this thing, the thing that, became very successful. And I wouldn't have done that if I would have just been, safe and secure in my job. Right. Or it's less likely that I would have done that. But in the moment when it happens to them, it totally sucks. It's really painful. It's kind of scary. And it's such an interesting thing to think about. You guys were young, newly married, probably didn't have a ton of expenses and stuff. And so getting fired from your job probably wasn't like, oh, this is the end of the world, or this is like the worst thing ever. But it still created this opportunity for you to like really think about, okay, what is the future going to look like? What am I doing? As opposed to just sticking with that job for, the next 10 years or forever. Right. So it's super cool. That's happened so many times. And so I think, if somebody's listening to this podcast and they just recently got laid off from their job, maybe this is going to turn out to be the greatest thing that ever happened to you, even though I get that in the moment, it's really painful and it sucks. And I've been there too. So it takes maybe some years and some retrospective to look back and say, hey, that actually turned out really great. And now I've built this thing, and I probably would have never built it if I wouldn't have been maybe forced into that situation. So SHYFT is going. When did you start thinking about creating your own products, and how did that come about? Like, why did you start with, like, what was the first product that you guys created?
Well, that's a good question. So, I mean, the intention to have our own brands has always been there from that origin. The origin story was, it evolved into, hey, this could be cool. We know how to make stuff, and maybe we do our own. And we were even more naive than we are now, and thinking how easy that would be. But I remember we have some early prototypes of like paper made, we'd like prototype out of paper, a product that we wanted to make when it was just 3 or 4 of us in a room. And so the desire was always there, but the reality was we weren't set up to be successful. And that's the one thing I'd say as a slight tangent, but to comment on your last statement and as well as this, I think the thing that people need to remember is that entrepreneurship is a lot of luck, and it's a lot of timing, and it's a lot of who you do it with. And then it's a little bit of how good you are personally. And there certainly is a component to that, and there's certainly hard work, and there is something to that. But for us, the timing was really critical, and I had jumped off and done some of my own products and just tanked because I didn't have the time to do them right. I didn't have the right people to do them with. There were a lot of things that just didn't line up, and not to mention my own inabilities. But to answer your question, it was a desire, but it was probably, we're in our 6th year. It probably started to really dawn on us in year 4, towards the end of the year, where it was like, okay, we now have this entity. We're not just in China. We're in we have offices in Vietnam and Mexico. We have this agency is evolving into something that's a lot more stable and real. And we now have the privilege of having people that are experts, from the Skull Candies and VF Group and as our executives. And these are the guys who are going to do this a lot better than I could do it, having only been a CEO of a service company. So that's when it started. And then specifically the blackmail incident, with Levi was all born out of just how, I felt inspired by Levi and the things that he does and telling stories about product and brand and creating experiences for people. And so at the end of last year, it was like, okay, if we just hit it off, and chatted. And it was like, if we could bring Levi here, that would be the final piece in my mind to set us up to succeed.
The nail in the coffin.
It would be the nail in the coffin. It would be the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun ways to talk about that final piece.
Yeah. It's
the Jenga block that tumbles the whole thing.
It's knowing, like, having Levi here is like being on death row. You just know the time's coming that things are going to blow. So, no, but in all reality, I skipped a little bit there. We do have Extra Nutrition, which is a nutrition company, and we have some other things that we've done, but we've never really created a brand, right? Like we've launched products and we've had some success and some failure, but now this is more of an evolution to like, okay, you can have a product, but to have a brand is a whole nother thing, and that's a world where, Levi's really really great at that. So anyway, I don't know if you can maybe speak more to that saga, but that's kind of what led to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting because we're kind of in our genesis of like really trying to build a sustainable brand engine, as well as, because we already have that product engine, but then also building something that generates revenue on its own and is another leg of the company. I certainly underestimated how much work would go into it when we came on board.
Yeah, you did.
I really did.
Levi thought,
We-
it's probably going to be a good solid like 8 to 12 hours a week for me, but this 40-hour week is brutal.
I didn't. Well, I wasn't expecting it to be work. I have been punching in at 10 a.m. I've been working all the way till 2 p.m. every single day,
That is a
Monday
grind, bro.
and Monday through Thursday. It's like, I don't know. My 4-year-old daughter started singing "Cats in the Cradle" to me the other day as I walked up. Where's my dad been?
This 4 hours a day being gone, being away from the family, is just brutal. Brutal. Okay,
Good
so
stuff.
what is the brand that you guys are building?
So one of them is Kano. We just acquired Kano Dog. And
Okay, so you said acquired. That's a product that you guys picked up from, was it a client or you specifically went after it? How did you?
Sure, we can talk about it. I think it's publicly known. The Thread wallet started it.
Yeah.
So Thread started it and did a killer job.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yep. And so they took their Thread model and basically applied it to dog products.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think they found very quickly, one, the demographics didn't quite match with their current demographic. And then two, Thread is such a rocket ship on its own and requires a lot of attention and is growing really fast that they thought, let's just focus on Thread. And so it was a good opportunity for us to take it on. And we're going to put our own little spin on the brand. And it's been interesting to navigate a whole new world, which is dog products that we knew a bit about, but had to learn a lot about.
Okay, and it's called Kano, like Kano.
Yep.
Kano
Dog. And what's the first product?
So right now we have collars, leashes, and harnesses.
Okay, all three.
And then we're working on, it should be, our office light turned off.
We just wanted to make your podcast a little more ghetto.
Yeah, well, this is awesome. This is real. This is raw. This is not high production.
We couldn't afford the power bill.
It's like, that's it. Lights just went out.
So let's tell our failure story now. How did we get here?
I'm getting strategically realigned after this phone call. So where were we? Oh yeah, we're probably
3 products so far.
We're working on a dog bed and a really cool, funny liquid death type campaign that I think
awesome
people will really enjoy, because I don't think people have really. There's a few things people haven't brought to the dog space, and one is kind of a streetwear style.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is just very like Petco, cheap, and the ones that have done a good job are very outdoorsy, but we're hoping to bring a really cool streetwear style and aesthetic too. And then also, nobody's really made a fun, whimsical brand and brought humor to the dog space. So
nice. I love that, applying the liquid death kind of like really out of the box sort of thing to a category that's kind of been for all intents and purposes boring, other than one of my favorite clips from Halloween where the little dog has the Chucky, the little Chucky outfit where the front paws fit in the thing that looks like Chucky running around, which is awesome. Okay, cool. So are you guys going to do like a viral video, like long form video, working with my boys over here at Creatively? Or are you going to produce the video yourselves, or what are you guys doing?
No, we'll be teaming up with Creatively, and we've got some other stuff cooking with those guys.
Nice.
Part of it too is like this. So we went to a pet expo in Florida, and like Levi said, what we saw was just this ocean of sameness. Everybody had that. It was like the bright blues and the bright oranges and the, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, like there's a big market for that. But it was just the same thing over and over and over. And for us, COVID was this accelerant for a lot of things, but dog ownership was one of the major categories that increased, right? People were home and they wanted this companionship, and frankly, they started to live these really integrated lives with their dogs because they were always together.
Yeah.
And now that people are going back to the prior format of their lives in some sense, we have this spike in dog ownership, and then we have this delta between, what your life used to be like and what it needs to be now in terms of going into the office, going, different places. And so part of our mission is, hey, number one, like, don't let your dog cramp your style. And, a lot of the time you try to curate this beautiful home, or, you're thoughtful about how you present yourself, and then you're carrying around, or your dog bed's in your living room right next to your nice sofa, and it looks like it's
trash
SpongeBob episode or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's just goofy looking. And so we're trying to kind of elevate that experience, and then also to create, specifically the products are all focused on creating this more integrated life with you and your dog. So whether that's, for you to be able to travel better with your dog, we've got something in the works called the doggy duffel, things that enable you to go to the beach, go on a hike, throw your dog in the car, whatever, and to do it in an elevated way. So that's kind of the goal, and we think there's a big opportunity there. But we're certainly
going to partner up with Nike Jordan brand and have some Jordan 1s for dogs.
Yeah,
going to have do a design collab with Travis can get Cactus Jack kind of branded dog wear and stuff like that, right? Going to get real.
Honestly, we'd love to do collaborations and like have Kano on Hype Beast and do cool streetwear collaborations. That's nice. Definitely for sure.
Yeah.
And one thing that we've learned this year is the importance of data too. I've always been kind of like a go with your gut kind of a guy, but it's scary when you are like, okay, I'm going to invest money into this brand, and I hope there's a market fit for it. But you have to see what's out there, see who you're competing with, and see what product features people are wanting, and not even just what exists, but what doesn't exist. And so not even just having the data, but reading the data. And so that's been something we've implemented this year into SHYFT, but also it's been really nice to look at it with Kano or with some of these joint ventures that people have been talking to SHYFT with. I was on such a good roll.
That's something.
Some of these, like, a lot of people are coming to us with like joint venture ideas, and we're then taking data and saying, okay, here's a product we can win at, instead of just here's what you're passionate about, or here's what you think would do a good job. We can accumulate a lot of data from different sources.
I love that, and it's brilliant. How do you, as a creator, test and validate something where it's a brand new category, right? There isn't kind of historical data. Even if you're doing kind of customer interviews, if it's something that they've never seen before, how do they know if they really want it or not, right? Either you're going to get false positives on people saying like, oh yeah, that sounds really cool, but they're just trying to be nice. Or people will be like, what are you even talking about? And so there is this challenge, right, to bringing something to market and using data to validate the idea in a category where they're not sure if they're going to want it, or they don't know if they would buy it until they actually can like see it or touch it. How do you approach that?
I've seen a lot of companies do a great job, like Nomadic and Gravel with Kickstarter is a really great way to test your product out there, pretty low risk. I like what Jay Davis at PillowCube says. He's like, I give a product to a bunch of people, and I call them and ask for it back. And if they don't want to give it back, then I know I'm on to something.
Yeah, he told that story. I had him on as a guest, and I love this is the perfect litmus test. If you can create enough, like create 10 versions, and it's pretty close to what your actual thing is going to be, you give it to them and ask them for it back, and they say no, then you've hit it, you've nailed it, right?
Yeah.
So are you going to do that with some of the Kano dog things? Like, give it to 10 people, give the bed to 10 people and say, try it for a week or two and then give me my doggy bed back?
For sure. We'll be conducting a lot of dog interviews, in-depth surveys with dogs, stuff like that.
You got to come out with a dog bracelet that does like sleep patterns and like an aura ring for dogs, and the like the doggy. What's the cool bracelet that everyone's wearing these days? Like a Nora, or what's it called? I can't remember what it's called.
We've talked about doing technology, but that's a lot of development,
Yeah,
and it's
those are hard.
Already hard enough to get like a soft good to market. It's definitely not off the table, but that's the internal discussions you have to have, because I remember having those discussions and we're like, guys, we really want to get into like pet insurance or pet food or the electronics game, and we have the capabilities in house here at SHYFT to do that, but it comes down to, okay, what do we need to focus on? The shift shite. I said from
just throwing all sorts of like shift synonym, shifty stuff.
Just a minute, the lights will turn back off and
I'll disrobe.
And then we'll be doing like the FBI interviews. You guys will be informant interviews.
Yeah.
That's one thing we should think, like, how much resources do we have? How much capital do we have? Like, and so it's a balancing act of like, yeah, we want to do this, but okay, realistically, what do we have time for, money for, and capabilities for that we could put towards it right now?
Yeah. So SHYFT, you guys have done. I know have done like clothing and soft goods. I almost said soft goods. So SHYFT soft goods. But you've also done electronics. Have you done like hardware kind of things too?
We have. We actually just 2 weeks ago kind of had a big powwow and said, hey, listen, I mentioned our chief innovations officer came from Samsung. Chief design officer came from Skull Candy. Chief supply chain officer came from Skull Candy. So we're familiar with the space, and that's why it's been tempting to get involved. Levi said it was a deliberate decision when we started SHYFT. When we started SHYFT, I understood and I saw how expensive it was to go down that route, and the projects take years sometimes, and the engineers are justifiably expensive, but expensive nonetheless. And so we're trying to actually, rather than expand into more product categories right now, we're trying to become more focused. And so we want to be the best in the world at apparel, soft goods, packaging, and co-packing. Like, those are the 3 categories for us.
Okay.
And there's enough opportunity there. Soft goods is anything from a camping sleeping bag to a wallet. So there's enough variability where it doesn't make our opportunity shrink any.
No, there's still tons of opportunity.
Yeah, so we're excited. We kind of are hands off on electronics, but we are feeling a lot of energy right now on just doubling down in the categories where we've become most proficient.
Okay, so so Kano Dog is kind of the, like, maybe the core focus on like the product side and kind of expanding the category into other aspects, other items for dogs, right? But talk about some of the other products that you guys have created, and let's talk about some of the failures. Let's talk about some of the lessons learned from some of the ones that didn't go the way that you thought they would.
Yeah, I haven't failed, so maybe you could take that one.
Yeah, Levi doesn't know what we're talking about, but
sorry, Dave, I had to look up on my phone I hadn't heard that word before. Fail.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Yeah.
That's cool to learn new words and learn new stuff.
It's good to learn new things.
Well, I'd say, there's been like a tremendous amount of failure both at SHYFT and in trying to introduce products. And I think I actually was having a conversation yesterday about this whole concept of failure, and not to make this too like.
But Levi wasn't there because he still hadn't heard the word yet.
He wasn't
familiar with the topic.
Not to make this too kind of esoteric, but just the whole idea of failure, I think, is largely misunderstood. And it's something that we attach a negative connotation to, and really it's there's a Kobe Bryant quote where he talks about like what do you mean failure? Like you missed the game winning shot. That's not failure. That's just what happened,
Yeah.
and you wake up and you do it again, and you might hit the shot the next day, and
Yeah.
it's a continuum, right? And so this idea of
You're
failure,
not failing, you're learning.
yeah, and the failures I think are better than the successes in some ways, right? Because you got to kind of take a step back and understand what you're trying to accomplish. And for me, I'm trying to become a certain type of human.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope along the way I can make money, and I hope I can make impact, and I hope I have deep relationships. But what at the end of the day I'm actually trying to do is become a meaningful contributor to the world, right? And I think entrepreneurship's a way I'm hopefully going to do that. I'm trying to do that. And so it just, when you think that way, it stops being, well, did we fail with Kano, or did we succeed, or should we have done this, or should we have, it's more of just like, okay, this is where we're at on the journey, and this is what's happened, and this is what we hope will happen in the future. That's all it is. There's nothing else, right? Some days you have money in your bank and some days you don't. And that's just kind of what it is. So I think, that's a high level, but we've failed. We've tried to launch a couple other products that we had to shelf because we just were unrealistic with how much it was going to take. We had that hoverboard, fiasco where we lost a stupid amount of money. We made a stupid amount of money and then lost all of it. And that was timing of the market. And so I always tell people, man, you want to start a company, it's all about timing and who you do it with. It's like, that's it. Ideas are a dime a dozen. If you start trying to think of ideas, you'll have ideas, but you got to have the right people and the right timing. And if you do, your chances go way up. So
it's such a brilliant way to think about entrepreneurship in general, or maybe just living in general, is if your main goal is to grow and to contribute, to create something for the process, for the experience, for the learning aspect of it, instead of the end result or the outcome, that mindset allows you to overcome really, really challenging, really hard things. And the setbacks aren't permanent. They're not a failure in the traditional sense of the word that Levi just had to look up. It's more the lessons learned. In fact, the Kobe thing is awesome. And just recently, Giannis, I can't even pronounce his last name. I've tried to do it before, but plays for Milwaukee Bucks. Famously, someone asked him the same thing. Well, do you guys feel like you failed? And he said, kind of like, what's failure? What are you talking about? Like, we learned, we grow, we played, we're getting better. That's part of this whole process of coming back. And, if you look at like missing one shot or losing one game or whatever as like failure, or failure as like this definitive end game kind of thing, and it's over, it's just a really negative mindset. And I think having that different perspective that you guys just talked about, Alex, that you just mentioned, is amazing, especially when it applies to consumer product creators and getting into the entrepreneurship and getting into the creation game. If you're doing it because you want to create, you want to build, and you want to become a better human, you want to grow personally, you'll be able to overcome all sorts of setbacks and challenges and man, yeah, just kind of like really thinking about that. Amazing from a mindset perspective, right?
Well, and not to make it too long-winded, but like one other comment I think that's really helped me with my own challenges. Like I have, just like anyone, I have my bad days. I have a lot of anxiety that's developed as an entrepreneur, where I'm just pit my stomach, for no reason. I just can't be calm. And the one thing that's really helped me, has been very liberating this last year, is just thinking about this idea of stepping outside of what's happening and remembering that, like, I am bigger than this problem. Like, the Alex Burge that I believe in isn't attached to my failure. It's those are parts of my story. And maybe, you know, you worry about what people think of you, and you worry about all of the things that you worry about. But if you can remove yourself and just be at peace, like there's nothing that can disrupt that. If you can, and I have little glimpses, you know, I hope to become the kind of person who stays in that state. But I have these moments of just like, just be calm. Like, you're okay. You'll be fine. This is way bigger than this experience of life. Is way bigger than the problem you think you're dealing with. So that really helps me as I struggle with my own kind of journey.
That's awesome. And maybe that's what Levi was meaning when he said, I don't know what failure is. It's all just learning. It's all part of the process.
I wasn't being sarcastic. Actually, that is what I meant. Me and Kobe are cut from the same cloth.
Yeah. You're the white Mamba.
Ooh, I like it. I like that.
You're the white Mamba, like the candy.
Yeah, it's Mamba, not Mamba. Sorry, Mamba. You're the white Mamba. Vanilla Mamba.
Vanilla Mamba? You know, let's just make it Mama. I mean, Vanilla Mama.
Yes.
I love it.
Well, we got a jet.
Okay. Well, we probably have to do like a part 2 at some time. It seems like there's lots more cool stories here. But really quick, how can people find you? It's SHYFT Global.
Yes.
Is it shiftglobal.co or shiftglobal.com?
http://www.
You're ruining it, man. You're ruining it.
Shift has a Y. So SHYFT.
SHYFT Global.com.
Yep.
.com. And you can, if you're a creator, whether you're a small brand or a big brand, these guys can help you get your product designed, prototyped, manufactured, all that sourced, right?
Yep.
And then Kano Dog, we can give a shout out. Where can people find these awesome products and get ready for the Travis Design collab?
KanoDog.com.
But I think we'd probably prefer if people are checking them out, check them out on Amazon. Trying to build a presence there. So
yes.
Okay.
We'd love that.
Good point. Yes.
Okay. Go on Amazon, search for Kano Dog, Kano Dog. But do you have a website? Is it kanodog.com too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Social presence. Follow you on all the socials. Do you got any funny TikTok doggy videos?
We do have some good ones.
All right. Awesome. Well, you guys are great. We'll definitely have you back and talk about some more stuff, especially as you drop some of this funny, cool stuff that you're working on to blow up the Kano brand. Appreciate you, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Dave.